have a quorum, so I'm going to take a motion from Stephen to come out of closed session.
Move we come out of closed session.
Second.
Are all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're out of closed session. At this time, I would like Ms. Beccaro, if we could talk about this how we want to handle the low performing.
We want to do the Alpha Academy first.
Let's do that after when we get everybody back here.
Okay.
So do you just want to go over what are low performing, continuously low performing schools required to do currently?
Sure. So historically, you guys had seen the low performing and continually low performing schools come into CSAB and give you a presentation that happened last year. To give you some context, I think last year we had 32 maybe. This year there would be 45 schools. So it's definitely, I think,
So it didn't work.
yeah, I mean, it's a big time commitment, and it's difficult to get schools from all over the state. Aside from that, what happens with the continually low performing and low performing schools is that all the schools will receive a site visit from our office. So we will kind of divide those up and visit those between now and we try to have them done around April for testing purposes. We write a report about that. That report is, accessible to you, and is also shared with anybody that, might need to see that report. And then we send a kind of, smaller report to the schools itself with kind of like, the strengths and growth points and kind of recommendations. So that's one aspect. In addition, the School Improvement Division here at DPI monitors all of the, low-performing schools because they are required to have school improvement plans. So those school improvement plans will be drafted and monitored through the NC STAR system. So that also takes place, and then that School Improvement Division can help and monitor and support those schools through that school improvement process plan. In addition, the schools will get academic notice letters from from our office. And they are required to notify their parents about their low performing status. The Comprehensive Needs Assessment Team here at DPI also occasionally does those site visits to schools. I'm not exactly sure what their strategy is or process is for determining which schools, but I know that they do visit charter schools. And then also the School Improvement Division monitors those schools that are on the TSI and CSI lists for targeted and comprehensive support. And then lastly, the MTSS division here works with schools that are having a multi-tiered system of support. And then of course our PD team here at OCS does professional development for the low performing schools. And Dave and I have recently talked about tracking the low performing schools and what kind of things they are taking the opportunity to attend and what kind of support they are accessing so that you would have that data, when they come before you for renewal or for anything else. And I will say that out of the 45 schools this year on the list, 4 of them will be renewing, up for renewal visits, or not renewal visits, but renewal presentations this year for you.
So how many of them are continually low performing but weren't low performing last year? And I know I think you sent us,
Yeah.
somebody
There
sent
are
us.
5.
There are 31 continually low performing, and then 5 that are continually low performing but not low
Low
performing.
performing.
And then there's, I just counted roughly, if you exclude the virtual charters, 10 schools that have been low performing 3 consecutive years.
That sounds right.
If we had to try to pull out some of the highest need,
I would think that would be the 10 we would need
I would
to
say
see.
take those 10 and then subtract
Anybody who's up for renewal.
anybody that's up for renewal, and then now we're talking a manageable number to actually focus on. Because again, you heard all the stuff that they're having to jump through hoops. I mean, as a person that's completed the NC STAR improvement plan, that thing alone is worth trying to get out of low performing status just to not have to do that document. I mean, there's a lot of incentives in Ironically, though, when schools are low performing, people need to be in classrooms and not doing paperwork, but they just make you do more paperwork.
And I think those are also the only schools that we would even consider taking any action on, would be those that have been low performing for 3 years consecutively.
3 years.
Yep, and there's some, usual suspects in here. But I would say, can we figure out those low performing 3 consecutive years, not up for renewal? And I think that's who we invite to come chat.
I'd like to make a comment on that. I wouldn't underestimate bringing a school in front of CSAP when they are low performing. I know that it does have a positive effect. I know one board in particular didn't want to go through that process again, so decided to relinquish their charter. So I understand how time-consuming it is, and I'm not sure how productive it is for everybody, but there are some schools that need to be caught on the carpet.
Well, I would
Again,
say,
we'll make sure that list is much more manageable now, but when it is effective when they do come in. It's another documentation of accountability when we have to stand in front of state board or when the media asks us about accountability, so.
I think if there's
there's-
schools that y'all think we need to see, then definitely.
by all means, that's you get to pick. Just add anyone to the list that you think we definitely need to see. That we're happy to do that.
Sometimes it's helpful for us to remember the school, the military school, that their goal was that one more kid was gonna learn to teach math, learn to pass math. That had they not come before us, we never would have put the fear of God in them. And they made major changes.
Yeah, they met growth too.
They met growth, but are they a C?
And we are having conversations with grandfather. They
They
are
are.
gonna start the
Or they're gonna
alternative.
start the process.
And we wouldn't need to see them,
We would need to see them.
not grandfather.
Question, that list you just gave us of everything a low-performing school does, have you sent that to us?
No, I just.
Yeah, would you send that?
Okay.
It'd be great to have that at my fingertips when somebody says charter schools are not accountable.
I mean, and there's a couple more, Dave, and I think that you would know who these folks are, but, I mean, we need to see Uproar. Uproar.
Yes,
Their school achievement score is a 7.2.
Is this their?
There's a-
Their third year though, isn't it? Isn't this their third? Or is this their second?
I think it's their
they're
second.
going into their third.
So they wouldn't be on that list, but we need to see them.
Yeah.
We're gonna see Ignite. We're about to talk to SEMA Kaiser. Okay, so we can work with that on the call and try to figure out what we're talking about in terms of timing, logistics, and who else we need.
I'll put together a proposed list and kind of look at some of the data that you guys have discussed and see what list we come up with.
Great.
We can, we talk about it at our leadership calls.
Yep.
Dr. Stegall just came to sit in on the meeting for a little bit. I think most everybody met him at Cherokee.
Welcome.
This is my boss, if you guys want to say something nice about me. This would be the time to do it.
Sorry to be coming in the middle of it. In and out of several meetings, but I'm going to come in and say thank you for the work you're doing. So I don't interrupt. I apologize for the interruption, but thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you. We're glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Okay, so, Stephen, you have, picking up our business from earlier today. Before we get into SEMA Kaiser.
One thing before I ask this question of legal is Phyllis Gibbs has resigned from the board effective at the end of last month. And she wanted me to just kind of relay to y'all. She's going to try to come up and have lunch with us at least one day. She just turned 80 years old. She had to have shoulder surgery, and so she can't drive right now. And she sent me an email that said, "Will you please call me? I can't type." And so then she gave me her phone number, and I called her, and we talked. And so, she also, with Alan's passing, she lost her ride buddy because they were splitting who was driving when they were coming. And something to do, and she, her husband basically was talking to her and said, "You're 80 years old. You're still going to drive up there for those meetings by yourself," and she said it's getting difficult. So I think we all thank Phyllis for all the, I don't know if she's listening or not, but for the great service that she provided in just a different perspective that she brought that wasn't otherwise present on the board. But so that's just wanted to let everybody know that's where Phyllis is. So I'm sure she would appreciate your prayers. Going back to Alpha Academy of Laurinburg, Mr. Snyder, what is your legal opinion as to whether this board could recommend to the state board, based on state board policy, whether we could recommend this school to open as a fast-track replication?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. My legal opinion is that Alpha Academy is ineligible to proceed as a fast-track applicant. As we discussed here at the board table this morning, State Board Policy CHTR 016 and State Board Rule 16 NCAC 06G.0513, fast-track replication of high-quality charter schools, eligibility, and other applicable statutes and rules govern whether a nonprofit board of a charter holder is eligible for consideration as a fast-track applicant. Among other requirements, each school operated by the nonprofit corporation must have resolved any noncompliance issues cited by NCDPI during the 3 years immediately preceding the application and must maintain this standard throughout the application period. I've conferred with NCDPI's Office of School Business, which has communicated with Alpha Academy regarding noncompliance issues since October of 2015. Multiple letters have issued from school business here at the department to Alpha Academy since that time, and NCDPI provided another preliminary audit of compliance matters late last month on August 29th. That recent letter includes both initial findings and required actions for the school to get up to compliance. Bottom line, NCDPI's assessment is that Alpha Academy's status right now is for disciplinary financial noncompliance. This is an elevated status of noncompliance, as the department more recently assigned financial compliance probationary status to Alpha Academy. It's important to note, however, that as part of an August 20th settlement agreement between Alpha Academy and the state, that there was contemplated an avenue for Alpha Academy to achieve compliance status with the department such that it could be an eligible applicant for fast-track replication. Specifically, the state agreed as a condition to the settlement to conduct a site visit at Alpha Academy within the first 20 instructional days of the 2019-2020 school year, and provided that the state determines that Alpha Academy was in compliance with state board policies concerning student accounting methods and timeliness and accuracy of student accounting record reporting, that it would remove Alpha Academy from financial noncompliance probationary status effective of June 30th of this year, which means they would have had the opportunity to apply as a fast-track applicant had they achieved that compliance. So, bottom line, unfortunately for Alpha, they cannot proceed as fast-track applicant.
All right, thank you for your legal opinion. I as much as I think Alpha Academy is doing a great job in Cumberland County, we're bound by the rules. If we don't follow the rules, then why do we have them? And so then I would move that we do not move Alpha Academy forward for an interview.
I second that.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay. This time we'll hear from S.E. May Kaiser Fox. And I'm just going to let the board know I need to step out for a little bit at around 2 o'clock to meet with someone in licensure. Got some licensure work that I have going on. Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Tina Fox Wallace, the board chair. With me today, I have our vice chair, James Davis, on the far end. Ruby Steele is our treasurer. And we also have today our principal, Mr. James Fisher. So today I'm prepared to provide a summary of our transition since leaving our management company. Our projected enrollment for our 2019-20 school year was 220. Our current enrollment as to date is 125. As a board, we made a determination that with the size of our current facility, we had to consider quality over quantity. The current facility will not accommodate 220 students. So with that in mind, we've looked at trying to cap our current enrollment to be able to serve the 125 students that we currently have the most efficiency and best practice as far as our educational plan is concerned. We have been able to secure a highly qualified staff. I invited Mr. Fisher to come today to talk a little bit about his vision as it aligns with ours regarding our educational and instructional plan. I'll give him just a few minutes after I have completed the summary. Our first day of school started on August the 7th. We were able to secure a lease with our current owners, the lots. In addition to that, we purchased 2 modular units for our 4th and 5th grade classes. We purchased those units with the use of grant funds and community contributions. We were also able to purchase 2 buses from the local LEA, Roy and Salisbury, again with the assistance of grant funds and community contributions. Our current vendors, we have systematically been recovering from vendor deficits. Multiple vendors have not been paid since or before May 29th. Vendors, including the landlord, have expressed that accounts were seriously delinquent and services have been at risk of having been terminated. As a result, we have been forced to identify new vendors who have been agreeable to payment schedules that have allowed us to continue operations. And so as of today, we are current with we have been able to identify new vendors, and our current accounts are current to date. And then as far as our transition with Torchlight, unfortunately, we experienced some difficulty in several areas in collaboration with transition from Torchlight, the lack of response to our request for access information from state systems and accounts that were held in the name of SMA and other documentation posed a significant hindrance to the day-to-day operation. However, through the persistence of board members and support of the local community, we have been able to stabilize the operations, the day-to-day operations. Our board meets on a weekly basis to continue to assess and monitor the school needs and to make our transition process run smoothly.
What about your previous vendors? You said you had to go to new vendors because the old vendors weren't ever paid. What's the plan for paying the old vendors?
Well, most of the old vendors that were in place prior to our transition from Torchlight, those vendors are still under Torchlight.
So the money,
So-
Torchlight owes the money, not you.
Yes, those that we could not move forward without transitioning, like Duke Energy, the city of Salisbury, we've been able to transfer those accounts to SMA. We had to go back and make those accounts good and then transfer them to SMA.
How many board members do you currently have?
We have 7.
Okay, who are they?
Our board members are,
Besides the 3 that
besides
you've
the
got
3
here
we
with
have
you,
here,
yeah.
we have Saeed Ahmad, Kenneth Muhammad Fox, and Rashid Muhammad, and Patrick Tate.
Now, I want to ask you about Kenneth Fox. This group had applied for a charter school a few years back and didn't get approved because Kenneth Fox was the board chair. And this is the same is this the same Kenneth Fox that had pleaded guilty to obtaining property by false pretense, count involving conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, federal program robbery, affecting commerce through extortion, and the use of mail to promote bribery and promoting money laundering? Is that the same Kenneth Fox?
Well, I can't answer yes to all of those charges. I'll say
But
that
he
is-
spent about 30 months in federal prison, right?
Yes, that's Kenneth Fox.
Okay, and when y'all came up for your interview with us the second go-around for SMA Kaiser Fox, you assured us that he wasn't going to have anything to do with the school. And how long's he been on the board now?
There was a recommendation to add him to the board, I believe in May, if I'm not mistaken. There was a recommendation to add him to the board, and that being
May of which year?
this year, May.
So that's the first time he's been on the board.
Yes, yes.
You were getting ready to answer the question, I'm assuming, as to why.
The reason being is that our board, in trying to determine how to move forward with management, we had to determine as board members how to bring people to the table that could provide resources for us to be able to sustain as an entity. Mr. Muhammad has been very instrumental in bringing community partners to the school, financial resources, community resources partners who have come to contribute. For example, a lot of the funding that we've received to be able to sustain through the summer and without the support of the management company have come through partners that he has brought to our to the board and to the school. So yes.
Is Mr. Muhammad and Mr. Fox the same guy?
Yes, Fox. I'm sorry, I say Fox, but he is Kenneth Muhammad.
What kind of, I guess, what kind of financial, maybe this is a question for the treasurer. I think you've got your treasurer here. What's the process that you have as far as money? What kind of controls you've got in place since now you're doing this on your own rather than, having Torchlight basically manage the finances, paying the bills? What are those processes that you have? And, in that same regard, dealing with, any conflicts of interest. I know it's a small community there. Is anybody that works for the school related to any board members?
No.
Okay. Okay, so how are you handling your finances now? What kind of systems do you have in place? Do y'all have a vendor for finances, or how are you handling that?
We have established BB&T when we first started operating, and we still have BB&T as our bank. In relationship to our operations, we use Quicken Books. We also make sure that we know exactly how to request funds from the state.
Okay, so you're handling all that in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
We also use a HR company, ADP, manages our payroll and HR services.
That's a big company. Okay, so they're handling payroll, and then you're just paying vendors out using QuickBooks? Okay, all right.
I just had on the, and maybe, I think this is probably a simple answer, but on the management transition plan, the management plan update, there's a number of administrative staff, but then those people are not on the actual budget or those volunteer roles. So for example, Director of Ops, Director of Curriculum, Director of Marketing, Director of Transportation, Exceptional Children Facility Management Assistant. None of those positions appear on the act, is based on what I'm saying, the revised budget. So did you cut all those positions?
We still have the same people that was there last year. In order for us to be more effective, we had to make sure that we had certain people in certain areas in order to make sure that we did not overlook anything. As far as operation, the young lady was there last year. She assists us to make sure that we have everything in order, that payroll is due when. Also, the liaison with the teachers and outside help that we get.
How are you paying them?
We have PDs, professional development, and that's established with some connection with business people in the community that volunteer their time. Also, teachers, that.
No, okay, let me phrase this more specifically. Is Dr. Regina Graham on your payroll?
She is.
What is her position on payroll?
She's, our curriculum and development.
Okay, how come it's not on the, her position is not on the budget? Or is she a teacher? Okay, but that's not on the budget.
7 classes.
Or maybe it is, right? Am I right?
No, there's not. There's one lead administrator and an administrative assistant.
It's up on the screen.
And so I would ask the same question about Courtney Sawyer. Is she on payroll?
Yes.
Where is her position on the budget?
Administrative assistant.
Okay. What about Cintra Lee?
Assistant administrator, the administrator. That doesn't make.
Is she the clerical person?
Yes.
Okay. Leroy White?
Custodian on the budget.
I don't, am I missing it? Is that a contracted position? Because there's a custodial contract, but that actually doesn't have a number next to it.
That's right.
Can you all help me understand what I'm looking at?
Your contract,
It's blank on the budget.
looks like some of the numbers were,
It's like some of the formatting is kind of weird to see.
it's out of alignment. Some of the numbers were.
Okay,
Insurance is 20,000, furniture's 5. There's a blank.
well, but then I would say even more concerning is that you got a bunch of positions in administration that are not, there's no number, there's no line or anything for them in the budget.
Spanish teacher's blank.
It looks like it's out of alignment.
So total expenses is 1053974, which would, but I can't tell if that's right, then you would have another,
Oh, 30,000, sorry.
3,000 is the fund balance.
yeah, but they're saying total expenses are 1,053,953, which would mean they'd have another $500,000, which maybe that's,
Total revenue's only 1084.
oh, okay. So are we paying those people? It sounds like we are.
Those are paid positions, yes.
Okay, but then what the concern here is that,
It looks like that it was printed and it's out of alignment. So, yeah.
Yeah, it almost looks like it was supposed to be in landscape and it's printed in portrait
Yeah.
and numbers are hanging off. I don't know.
Another copy.
It's been transferred.
okay, so then, the other question is, with 120 kids, you have to cut these positions. Like yesterday. Because you can't have a director of curriculum instruction with 120 students. You can't have a director of marketing. You can't have, unless Cintra is driving a bus, she can't be the director of transportation. You're not going to have enough money.
Who's managing the budget?
Who is, does principal, do you want to comment? Do you, or, I mean, I know you're new, so I don't want to put you in a position there. You're,
Well, let me share something with you.
you need to come up to the microphone.
What it is that I would like to share is, in coming on board, The numbers are as it is that you see them. I came on board on July 29th. What is in place has taken place before that time. What I try to do and what it is I've learned to do is I don't handle money pieces. That's not what my job is. I'm absolutely to take care of instruction and instructional best practices. That's the role of the instructional leader.
Right.
That's what it is that I do. I think that we all would agree on that. And for such purposes, that is why, that is all it is that I take care of.
So you're the lead administrator in this budget?
Oh, yes, sir.
And the assistant, there is no assistant administrator.
We have a director of operations and a curriculum specialist.
Okay, but those people are not in the budget.
So again, I believe that there are some, in printing the budget, the alignment with the budget, for some reason, the numbers are not there. However, we have looked at the budget. We have been able to develop a budget at 220 and then a budget a revised budget at 121, knowing that there had to be some adjustment to the budget, and we've made those adjustments.
And you've kept all those roles?
For our operation. No, actually, we made those adjustments going in, based on our break-even budget from last year. Which was at 122.
Okay, do you understand that they've gotten money on 225?
Right.
It's at old numbers, old amounts, AMs, but they got 34% of 225 at the old numbers. Now, theoretically, when we get a budget that, they'll get a little bit more, but bottom line is, they got paid for 100 kids they don't have. And they already have a budget that doesn't work.
Does
It
FBS
works
have?
right now, but it's not gonna work the time the next.
Do you have any insight into what they were paid on and anything like that, the folks from FBS on the school?
I do not.
Okay.
I mean, I can find out, obviously, from our accountants in the section, and get back to you with that. But that being said, I had discussed with Dave, having one of my monitors and myself go out to the school to look, kind of a dual role, kind of a targeted review of the situation as it is, and maybe how it came to be under the other management organization, as well as provide some technical assistance, make sure that they're in contact with the appropriate individuals in the agency. And again, I know that we're not in the role to give business consultation, but just to make sure that they have the contacts they need and get an update on where things are right now. And we can certainly report back on that. We had planned to reach out. I was actually going to talk to them after the meeting. But I can work with Alexa's staff to get an update on the current financial, what the certified expenditures.
Can you check with allotment and see if they can give us an answer in the next 30, 45 minutes, what they were funded on?
My computer, of course, died, so yes, I can actually run that too.
Thank you.
Can I ask, we have an audit due October 31st. Are you contracted with an auditor right now, and have they come out to the school to start the audit for June 30th of 2019?
We have not, they have not started an audit for June, no, they have not started an audit.
Does anyone know if you've contracted with an auditor to meet that requirement?
It's not in the budget.
No, not from last year, we have not.
For your fiscal year ended 2019?
No.
There's no audit?
No audit.
Not when
No
that's
audit
not been
initiated?
started.
Usually, and I'm sorry, and I don't want to interrupt, but usually the local government commission does reach out to school business with a list of any audit contracts they haven't received. With SEMA being open, this is their first year, and they have had a significant staff turnover as well. I'll reach out to Sharon Edmondson, the director of local fiscal management, and communicate and find out exactly what needs to be done and get the school in touch with the LGC about the contract and clarify those expectations immediately.
There's no money in the budget to pay an auditor, is there?
Where's the money in the budget to pay the outstanding debt?
How much outstanding debt does the school have that Torchlight doesn't have? Do you know that number?
The last number that we were able to calculate with Torchlight was a little over $30,000. In addition to the $17,533 for the Read to Achieve summer program that we never received for our salaries or Read to Achieve supplies. So our summer Read to Achieve staff were never, well, some of them were never paid, nor did we ever receive supplies. So our staff just use their resources to implement that program.
That money was specific.
Yes.
CRC 16, the only thing you could use it for was summer. to achieve.
We pointed that out several times, and that, again, we never received any.
And how many students were in your summer camp program?
I believe it was 14 to start out was the enrollment.
Okay, Bruce, and then.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right numbers, is what at least what we think is right. If I go to the top of the budget, it shows the revenue at 1.506 million. And if I scroll down to the very bottom, it's showing the revenue at 1.084. What's the difference? I know, yeah, thank you. I did pass math barely. Why is there a difference between the revenue shown at the top and then what's shown at the bottom is my first question. And then my second question is this 1.05 million in expenses. What I'm hearing you say is that that doesn't include these additional positions that are on staff that aren't reflected here. Is that a correct statement?
I think I can just doing some back of the envelope math, I think I'm willing to guess that total revenue at 1.5 is what it would be if it's 225 students.
Right. And then.
And 120, if you figure 100 kids.
Okay. So
$8,000, 7,000.
It's an $800,000 budget roughly for 100 kids.
So I'm thinking that might be where the difference lies.
The bottom is more reality based on what their numbers are.
Yeah, I mean, for 121, they're gonna have roughly around $1 million.
But that expenses number is not correct. So that gap, that revenue over expense line of 30,936 is, you've already identified 2 or 3 positions that you say are on staff that aren't in here. I can't imagine that they're all making 10,000 apiece.
So I guess, do you all understand the seriousness of the situation that we're in when the board, those of us who are just looking at this, seem to be having to unpack?
I do understand, yes, the way that the budget looks, that it does not look that we have, look like that we have looked at it very closely, but we have looked at it a number of times and looked at considerations as far as our staff, and because we're very committed to the people that our staff and being able to pay them. Over the first school year, there were many concerns about them being paid and being paid timely and consistently. And so with that being in mind, we've made many considerations about being sure that we operate efficiently. And so we have looked at the budget, and I apologize that this looks like we haven't. And it does look like that. I take responsibility and acknowledge that. And I don't know if it's the printing or what, but we have looked at that. We've looked at several different revisions of the budget, that being the 220, and I think we have a copy of that budget, which is certainly.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you have it, you should be able to email it right now to the Office of Charter Schools. I mean, I can send you my budget instantaneously from the last month. Yes, sure.
We have the budget for 220 is about $500,000 deficit when we look at adding only 121 students.
Right.
You're corrected.
Yes.
And so that is where we're looking at how to make.
I'm saying, do you have the soft copy? Because this thing is printing weird. Can you email us the soft copy? Because if you can just email that to Office of Charter Schools, that would help, because we can take a look at that right away. Yes, sure.
So, couple things. I have some real concerns that we turned down this school because this gentleman was on the board.
Correct.
And then they put him back on the board, didn't think it was important to mention that to us. They dumped the management company, and the school was getting ready to open when that finally went to the state board to get approved. We got a budget that doesn't work. I think the school's in real trouble.
Yes.
And just to add to that, it wasn't so much that he was on the board, it was that he was on the board and submitted to this board a background check that showed that he had never been convicted of a crime. I think that, to me, that was more, it was almost like, I know there's some bad background check people out there, but a background check that misses a federal felony that you serve time on, that's pretty bad, especially when it had to do with federal bribery and federal grant fraud,
And since that was a big issue, enough of an issue that we didn't issue the charter, when they felt like they needed to bring him back to the board, I don't know, I just think it probably would have been a good idea to mention.
I'm really worried. I don't, can we maybe bring the school back in January and?
In
January? I don't know.
Wanna wait till January, October?
No. Yeah.
You opened on August 7th, you said?
When is
Yes.
their?
That's when children came?
Yes.
So they're at day
So
20.
you're right up on your 20 day. You should already have you should be right up on your 20 days. So we should be able to get a PMR1 and see what the ADM is.
Yep.
You mean
So we'll know
August?
exactly how.
August
many.
20th or, what day they open?
They opened August 7th.
August 7th?
Yes.
So,
Your 20
What
days
is
already.
your ADM right now?
You're saying 120.
120.
Yes.
Have you done your PMR1s?
Last week.
Yes.
And it's 121,
Yes.
Okay, but you've been
That's the
paid
final number.
for
225.
225.
225. So how much are you expecting that you're gonna have to return to DPI?
Well, they won't return it. It'll
Return
just
it.
get
Yeah.
screwed up.
It gets-
It'll just get screwed
I
up
mean,
in the
not
second.
return,
in the
but
next
Taken off their
installment.
next allotment.
Yeah.
allotment.
Yeah.
Does FBS know how much the school's drawn down already?
I just sent that to Roxanne, and I'm hoping to get it for you next week.
Okay, because I think that would be important to know since,
They have left, yeah.
since they've basically already received 2/3 of the money that they're gonna get for in-state funds, they've already received.
When they're expensive people.
Yeah, that's my concern is with these positions. And you're telling me, you said that these people are still on payroll.
And they're not even showing in the expense part of the budget right now, so they're
Which,
spending even
makes
more
sense if you
than
cut
that
that,
showing.
but it doesn't sound like it.
What year of operation is this, third?
Going into the second.
Second year of
Second
operation,
year.
right?
Yes.
What does ES stand for in the budget? I'm sorry. In the revenue?
What's ES?
ES, what does it stand for?
Elementary school, maybe?
No, it goes with supplies.
Exceptional services.
Supplies.
Exceptional students?
Oh.
No, books, supplies.
The plural of
Supplies,
supplies.
SES.
Exceptional services.
Exceptional
Their
services?
EC
So
fund.
it was
Services.
EC.
fund.
So
I think it
you're
should've been EC.
receiving for, and is that supposed to represent 15 students?
Yes.
Yes.
597,000?
No, that is not correct. These numbers are not correct.
I want to go back to, I guess,
This is not what
Cheryl's
budget
point, and maybe it's
All right.
me still being new to this process, but if the school was, as part of the process for the school to be approved, it was uncovered that there was a gentleman who really should not have been on the board based upon their background, and so therefore the school, they removed the gentleman from the board or during the application process, got approved, and then
The following year, they came back.
following year, they put him
Yeah, they
back
came back the
on.
next year, and it was, the school was, it was a different name, but it was the same group of folks.
There's no, that's okay. But any other way to word that question, it's like. there's
If I
nothing-
can clarify, what I'm hearing is that that there may have been some type of intentional, I don't know, like a okey-doke to do that. We, as I said before, at that point, our board had to make a decision that we move forward to be able to stay open as a school and to maintain our staff with or without the management company. Had we stayed with our management company, we probably would not have had our staff, because most of our staff had already articulated that they would not stay with the school another year and not be paid, and have the same behavior patterns that they experienced the first year. And we also had sought some consultation regarding the operational practices for the first year of the school, and made a decision that we had to move forward without the management company in order for the school to maintain. So with that, we sought out our resources, our community resources, and to the liking or not, the people in our community have been able to move past, move forward from a person's past and looked at the resources that that person offers now. And that person has been able to gain the trust of parents, of community partners, of business organizations within that community. And the reason that we've been able to add to our enrollment, to our business partners, is because of the person that is in that particular, that we're discussing today. And so we utilized the resources that we had to be able to get to a position where we could maintain the school.
Okay.
I'm all about second chances.
Hold on.
You know, whether that's right or wrong, it's.
I'm gonna just, all right, so, we're gonna, Ms. Kakadallis and then
Just
Mr.
a real quick
Walker.
question. Was it imperative that you put him on your board for him to help you?
No. One of our board members made a recommendation that we add him to the board. And I don't think it's relative to whether he stays on the board or not. I don't think that's his, that's important to him.
I mean, you should have let us know, or you should have asked Office of Charter Schools about, what's your advice in this situation?
And that is our.
I think my thing is, that's much lower level problem than what I'm seeing, which is having been in this position with schools before and seeing what is, it's a death spiral. You don't have enough kids. You've drawn down enough, way more money than so you've already drawn down a third of your money for the entire year. Mm-hmm. Your data was not good last year, and we're seeing all kinds of, you're overstaffed. And so this is a big, I'm seeing all kinds of red flags here. And no one on the board or your school leader can actually talk to me confidently about what's going on and what the numbers should be and what they are, to the point that our board is actually saying, okay, we're calculating this and we're telling you what the difference is between these two numbers in your budget.
Well,
So,
and add to that, they're doing their own accounting, so it's not even like there's a backup group.
And you haven't, it doesn't seem like anyone's aware of an audit that has been initiated. So when you decided to split with your management company, clearly were some things that they were doing that now are you're about to be on governance warning just for the audit alone, plus all these other factors. So this is a very serious situation, and the board member is kind of secondary to these other issues, because those are the issues that are going to prevent you from staying open. And that's really what we're talking about right now, is whether or not you are going to your doors will remain open through the end of the school year, either whether we allow you or whether or not you're able to, from a financial and just a management standpoint. I don't know what people's thoughts are. I feel like we need to get some more information from FBS. We need to see you next month. We need to consult with legal about our options in closed session. But I think right now we probably just, we need to gather all that information and see you next month. I don't know if, Dave or legal have other comments or other board members want to?
Do we know how much you have in the bank right now?
$4,753
Okay.
And then I think we've got the numbers from FBS. I just saw it come into my email.
Okay. Yeah, so what
They've
do we-
drawn down $78,306.
Okay, so that's good. They haven't drawn
And so
down all
there's
of it.
still $337,748 of that provisional first.
Do you know what your monthly payroll is?
Yeah, and that was based on the 225, the 34%.
They're gonna, $4,000 in the bank.
But they can draw down their state
They
dollars.
can draw
to
down
pay-
another
to pay bills.
337,000. Yeah.
What's your monthly payroll?
46, 48. $58.
Okay.
$58,000 a month?
I can't be that high.
How many teachers do you have?
7, according to the budget.
17.
Yeah, I mean, their total personnel for the year is 528,000, so
Okay.
that's, sounds about right.
Close.
CSAM members, if there's not, if you would like to go into closed, we can have a closed session conversation about this if you like.
I almost feel like we need to get more
Yeah,
information.
we need more information.
I mean, can we do the closed next month? I mean, would that, or I mean, unless you see a pressing reason to do it now.
I defer to the board.
I am really concerned about the kids and their present and future education with this school. I do not want to leave Raleigh without having some sort of an idea of the actions that we need to take to either assist or close so that these families with these kids in this school will know what their future is.
Then I'll move we go into closed
Yeah.
session to consult with our attorneys on attorney-client privileged matters.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Talk about licensure.
Showing on there.
Leanne, can you guys come in?
It's on.
to make the motion out here for? All right, let's come out here quickly and, all right, I'd like to make a motion for us to come out of closed session.
Second.
All right, properly moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're in open session. Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that, it's got a couple parts. I'm gonna ask that Financial Business Services place SE Made Kaiser Fox on a allotment restriction. So, which is, you know, they'll place the right language on it. So basically, you're gonna be on a restricted financial allotment. So you will not be able to draw down funds from the state until we can be certain that your, what is that?
It sounded like something got unplugged all of a sudden. On the back of the computer.
Okay, so, and Leanne's not in here, so I wanna, so that's the first, well, let's just keep going. So we're gonna ask, I'm gonna make a motion that FBS place, an allotment restriction on SE May Kaiser Fox, and that Office of Charter Schools and legal do, whatever follow-up necessary to make sure that SE May Kaiser Fox is in compliance with all state board policy, state statute, and in compliance with their own charter agreement over the next month. So that's basically allows the Office of Charter Schools, which means they're going to ask you to provide additional information regarding, and that you will provide that right away, whether it be budgets, contracts, et cetera. You need to work with OCS to make sure that we have the full picture of what's going on financially. And and as well, anything, this also encompasses anything we need from Torchlight as well, to make sure that we have a full picture of what's going on with your financial situation as well as your governance status. That's a long motion and Ashley wasn't typing, so, but I'm sure you can tighten it up for the
Second.
minutes. Steven, second. So all in favor? For you all specifically, so the motion carries. You all just need to stay in touch with the Office of Charter Schools. They'll direct you and let you know of anything they need.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to make sure before they leave and go back home that if they have any questions, you'll be able to ask either the board or the staff. So did you understand the motion that the chairman articulated, and do you have any questions, Mr. Chairman, which is what I want to know?
Well, I guess the question that I have is the restriction on the allotment until, I heard until, and then I believe
So until we have determined that basically you're off of a kind of disciplinary status where we feel comfortable with your ADM and your budget.
So would it be safe to say compliance?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, you've drawn down a third of your budget for the year currently, based on your current allotment. So we're gonna make sure that you do not draw down more money than you need to operate the school. Because what we find is that when schools get in this situation, they end up drawing down a large pot of money, They spend all the money, then they run out of money before the school year is over. So the restriction on allotment drawdown prevents that from happening. So it helps you manage what money you have, given that you have a lot less funds than you originally projected. And your current budget is, in what you're telling us from a staffing perspective, is beyond what we would deem necessary to run a school of 125 students in what would certainly be financially prudent.
Chairman, quickly, for clarification, they have access to 34% of 200 some students, but they have not actually drawn that money down. They've drawn down a little under $80,000. So anybody that's in the public might hear that this school has pulled down all 300,000. They have not. They've only have access to 78.
Which is good.
Yes.
Which is good.
And probably, I mean, my guess of what FBS will do is, just for your clarification, they'll probably take what your allotment would be under 121 students and allow you to draw that down monthly. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna have the money to pay the bills. That's not what this is at all when we talk about that. It's just to make sure that it basically, it's a lockbox with a drip. Instead of you getting 3 allotments a year, you're gonna be getting 12 for the time being.
And the reason why we drew down that large amount that first time was because we had to go back and pay people for 2 months behind in order for us to have.
Well, and that's part of there's a lot of restrictions on how this money can be utilized. So you can't draw down funds from this school year and pay people back pay from last year.
For this year.
Okay.
So we had people that gave us money in order to pay off salaries for July, but we didn't know we had access to the allotment, and until Friday, we didn't even have access to do the drawdown. We just got that report like on Friday.
So again, and it sounds like this was already in the works. FBS is going to do some technical assistance with you so that you'll make sure that you're doing everything the proper way. But I also want to, the school is in a serious position financially, student enrollment wise, academics wise, and this transition from a different management company. We had the governance piece with the board member. These things need to get fixed. They need to get fixed fast in order for this board to remain comfortable that the school can stay in operation throughout the end of the year and beyond. So I would encourage you to respond as quickly and expediently as you possibly can to any inquiry or any information that the Office of Charter Schools gives you, and also to work as closely as you can with the Office of Financial Business Services to make sure you have a clear understanding of everything that you're supposed to do. We will, in anything that Torchlight needs to provide, we'll also be requesting that either from you or from them directly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna step out because I need to go down to licensure. I'll be back.
All right, do we have anything else on the agenda that we have the public speaking to us? I think everything else we've got is with staff, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted, since we were running behind, I was gonna pull the public up if we needed to, but, all right. Do y'all need a break? Okay, let's take I can't see the clock anymore. Let's take a break until 2:40. 2:40 Verizon Standard Time.
See it, stand it on the screen.
Yeah, I can see that now.
Yeah, just had to get.
I can, it's 2:34 PM, according to that clock. Mine too.
No, 2:34, 9:19,
I have to run downstairs for a while, so hopefully I'll be back.
Yeah, 2:40 on the dot. Start back. Sorry, Doctor.
Yeah, let me show you. Same place, babe. It's the standard.
Let's see here. We have Dr. Keebler Williams. Give us a ready to open report.
Thank you very much. So my name is Keebler Williams. For those new board members that are here, I welcome you and look forward to working with you. This is always an exciting time for me as we celebrate the opening of new schools that I've had the pleasure of working with over the past year. At this point, 13 of the 14 schools have opened. Team CFA Community Public Charter School remains to open, but I received a certificate of occupancy for them at 1:19 today. Have some questions for the Gaston County Building Inspections Office, but barring no issues there, I anticipate that Team CFA Community Public Charter will open tomorrow. What you want to know, though, from me is about enrollment. So, to give you a summary of the enrollment, and you all have received a spreadsheet that provides this information as well. Only one school met its enrollment target, and that was Hobgood Charter School. 11 schools are below 75% of their max projection. 3 schools are below the statutory requirement of 80 students. Blue Green Academy, Monroe Charter Academy, and Tillery Charter Academy. 8 schools are below their break-even number. Blue Green Academy, Discovery Charter School, Poquoson Innovative Charter, Ridgeview Charter School, Still Creek, Team CFA Community Public, Tillery, and Westlake. On the facility side, of the 13 schools with COs, only 2 have temporary COs that expire. So the other 11 are ready to go, full steam ahead with final COs for the buildings that they are currently in. The 2 that have temporary COs that expire are Blue Green Academy, whose CO expires at the end of September, and Southwest Charlotte STEM School, whose CO expires in the middle of November. I do anticipate that both schools will do the work that needs to be done to transition those temporary COs to final COs by the deadlines for each school. Another 2 schools are planning mid-year moves to their permanent homes. Apprentice Academy High School of North Carolina and Team CFA Bonnie Cone Classical Academy. Both are in temporary facilities now that have final COs, but they are both building permanent facilities and expect for those facilities to be ready for Apprentice by the end of October and for Bonnie Cone near the beginning of December. Both schools are anticipating moving over the holiday break and beginning school in their permanent facilities in January. That's just a quick update and overview for you all. What questions may I answer for you?
Blue Green's only at 52 students.
Yes.
And then Monroe is at 76, which that's 4 off, so they may be able to get it. Then Tillery's down. Is Tillery going to, I know there had been an email to some effect that they may be asking for a waiver of the 80 student requirement because of the sparseness of the population in the county. I think it said something like they were still, even with their 63 students, that they're, I'm trying to see if I can find this email real quick here.
We have received some correspondence from the school wanting to know, do they qualify for the rural exemption, and that they might apply for that. They have not officially told us that.
So I would, just as information for the board, if I am to read to you what the law states, it says that the charter school may serve fewer than 80 students or employ fewer than 3 teachers if the application contains a compelling reason, such as the school would serve a geographically remote and small student population, and their application does not contain such a reason.
So they could request an amendment, though, right, to do that? Well, I mean, Well, you
think
can
there's a-
amend your application all the time.
Happy, I'm happy to address any legal questions that the board members may have with respect to this process. I'd like to review perhaps this request that may or may not have come in. But happy to talk with you all offline about that issue and the difference between applications and perhaps material amendments to charters.
Well, I mean, I think before we even jump too far into that, I think, that's something we could prep for next month. I mean, I think that probably, of these schools that we have here, Tillery and, Monroe and Blue Green, of having them come in next month, because, we did have to close the school, last school year, for not meeting the statutory minimum requirement of 80 students. And so I think that would give time if, if there were gonna be an amendment request and we've got, all that we could go through to let that come in. But I mean, I think especially just to, see where they are. I mean, we're definitely not gonna shut the school down without inviting them to come talk. Mr. Ford?
Not on this subject, but I got a question relating to the spreadsheet.
Sure.
All right. Looking at the 1-year delay category, is there anything you can share with us as it relates to the Movement School East? And you got in your notes facility concerns. Is there anything else you can share about that?
Oh, so they identified a facility, and Ms. Turner may be able to even speak better about this because she's a former board member, but they identified a facility but knew they would not have it ready in time to begin in the 2019-2020 school year. So they asked for a delay very early on and have been serving that delay this school year and will continue in their delay status for the 19-20 school year with plans to open in August of 2020.
Dr. Weems, my question is regarding the budgets. So it looks like the majority of these schools are less than their break-evens. So do you have amended budgets for each of them?
No, ma'am, we have not requested amended budgets from them.
Is that something that we will do going forward?
We do not typically request their budgets at this point unless directed to do so by this board.
Some of these are significantly lower break even.
Let's, let's do this. For every, I'll make a motion. I move that we ask the Office of Charter Schools to secure from the schools and that they'll be required to submit budgets if their September report number is lower than their break-even number. So that'll be my first motion.
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion or debate on that? It's if they'll have to submit a revised budget to the Office of Charter Schools if their September enrollment report number on this sheet is less than their break-even number. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And then the next motion that I would make is that that we have Blue Green Academy, Monroe Charter Academy, and Tillery Charter Academy appear before us at our October meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Anything else you need to relate to us, or do we get you covered?
I just have one question for you. For those 3 schools that you want to appear in October, how would you like for them to prepare?
We need to know what their attendance was coming up to the meeting, and so some sort of evidence is if they're going to come in and say, well, we're over 80 now, just some sort of evidence is, showing in Power School or whatever that they've got over the 80 students. And then when, they need to be prepared to talk about their budget. I would think because enrollment impacts budget more than anything else.
I would like to see a breakdown by grades. A breakdown of enrollment by grade.
Okay.
And staffing.
And then the 8 schools for which you would like to receive their budgets, would you like for those to be sent to you before your next meeting, or would you like to see them at your next meeting?
I think if we get them before the meeting, so that we have time to review them, and then if we need to have those schools come in, then we can make that decision at the October meeting, to have them come in November or December. And Monroe's right on the line of being over 80. All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Williams. All right, approved virtual charter changes. Ms. Vaquero.
Okay, so I have revised the virtual charter school agreement based on the 4-year extension of the pilot. So there's 3 main changes I made. One is just to add references to the new legislation that extended the pilot. The other is to amend the dates, because obviously now the charter will go on for another 4 years. And then to align this charter agreement with the current state board approved charter agreement for all charter schools. So the language has changed, and so it's just aligning.
So these seem to be pretty technical changes, just to align up what was there and change the dates.
Any questions?
All right. Do we have a motion to?
I make a motion, we accept the changes to the virtual school pilots policy.
All right, we have a second. All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Reeves to recommend to the State Board of Education that they approve the virtual charter agreement as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, it's approved. All right, renewal season introduction. Say season like it's like a football season, or.
I think it's exciting for you.
Yeah, it was exciting till you told me how many we had.
Yeah, it's a lot better this year. We only have
It's only
19
half,
schools.
right?
It's half of what we had last year.
Are these
So-
the group from the 72, when we had the 72, and then some others mixed in there?
Well, we had 37 the year before, and now we have only 19. So since I started working with renewals, I've been creating a virtual map every year so that we can keep up with where we're going and have an at-a-glance look at our schools. And I thought, I was talking to some teammates, and we were like, they might actually like that at-a-glance. So this is at your disposal at any time. It's embedded in the presentation, but you can click on any of those dots and it'll show you which school it is. You can get to their website from there, so it's just a one-stop shop kind of for you. So this year, you will have 19 schools to look at, and really, the list is here. This is all the schools that you have, and the report will be the same in format unless there are any changes that you would like to put in there for this year. We'll still talk about the growth index, and we'll still talk about the comparability of each school. So this is just an at-a-glance for you to know what's coming up. I'm currently in the process of finishing up phone calls or phone conferences with schools that come to the table with any type of issue, not just academic, it could be compliance. The purpose of that call is to ensure that every school has an opportunity to speak directly with me about any concerns that they may have, but on the other side of that, to also make sure that they understand where they stand as we come into this renewal report. So full transparency is something that we promise, and so just as a matter of communication, it's an extra step, but it's worth it so that when they come in this room, they're not surprised about what's going to be said. Do you have any questions for me?
So Shonda, on this chart, the last column references what they received last.
Correct. So if you look at, so the first column is the school's number, then the school's name. I wanted you to know when the school was established, because I know that comes up in our conversation at times. So that is the first column to the right of the school's name. The second column to the right of the school's name is the grade level that they're serving. And the last one is what their current term is, what their current charter agreement term is.
Okay, any other questions?
Quick question for the new guy. Why do some charters have 3 and some have 10 and 5?
So, as of a few years ago, any new charter school starts with 5 years. Previously, schools were granted 10 years in their first charter agreement, but that's no longer. So if they were a new school, they could potentially have 5 years. But also, if they had any sort of compliance issue, then they may not have received the ultimate 10 years. There are options of 10, 7, 5, 3, and non-renew. And I was thinking about this over lunch as we were discussing, you know, what information you want to know about charters. Any new board member that would like a short training on charter renewals and how that process works, I'm more than happy to assist you, because it is a lot of layers. It's a 2-year process, and it's that way for a reason, because we want to be extremely thorough in what we present. So please just reach out through email, phone call, more than happy to assist you.
And I think we'll have, as we're doing this, we're not calling it a framework, or calling it guidelines. We have guidelines, it's a rubric that's not a rubric, that, so you can go through and basically, you'll get a chart that looks like some of the ones that we have from the application, so you'll get this, and then you'll have the rubric, and you can say, oh, well, this school, you know, it exceeded the performance of the local school district and also net growth, and
Right.
so it doesn't have compliance issues, so it's a 10-year renewal. And so it's kind of formulaic, but then there's still that, you know, some discretionary wiggle room that you've got there. So renewals, I mean, I think the two biggest decisions really that we make on a regular basis are renewals and approval of applications, so.
That's correct.
So
And
our timeline, we'll start looking at these.
so the full report will be next month, and all of the attachments that Mr. Walker just mentioned will be provided to you. As always, you'll have a data printout for every school that's on this list, and you'll have a layout of how they're doing as far as compliance and everything. But October is the month of their report, yes.
Is there any particular order that they're presented to us in? Like,
So,
it might be no issues versus schools that might have some more deliberation on?
very good all these are good questions. You guys are great students. So, as of last year, we started presenting them in groups. So if a school is up for 10 years, then I can just say, these are schools that currently have no issues pending, and academically they're very strong. They would fall within the 10-year guideline. And so I can do it that way again this year, if that sounds like it's a preference that you all have.
I thought that was very helpful last year.
Okay, great. So we'll keep that
And
as part of the
save time.
report. It does save a lot of time. So it used to be alphabetical, but now it's based on category.
So how many months is this gonna take us to, how many meetings?
So
Depends on how many
timeline-wise,
10 years, we have the 10 years to go real quick, because we
Yeah.
don't even bring them in for an interview.
I guess that's kind of, maybe it's not an issue. That's kind of what I was getting at. Would it be, for those that might have some issues that might even be up for consideration not to be renewed, we do them first, that gives them more time to deal with what's about to happen.
But that's why
Not happen.
I think Mr. Walker asked you, how many did you already look at?
right,
Look like-
and I would say, again, 4 to 5 maybe. I'm still working on one particular school. And I think, Ms. Reeves, your question about timeline, to fully explain the timeline for people who are new, the month of October, I actually give the report, but then the board decides, you all let me know who you want to see, whom you want to come in, and I send that communication to the school, and they come in the months of November, typically November or December. It just kind of depends on what the issue is. They've all been told about having their audit in. It is a part of our presentation and webinar, so hopefully we won't have any wait time on audits this year. But other than that, it's really dictated by the number of schools that need to come in and the amount of time that you need to spend speaking with them about whatever issue they may have.
We don't want CSAB to vote on any until the audits come in, because we had an issue one year where the audit was something and we had to hold that school back. So we'd like to try to vote in December if possible.
December is the ultimate time, pending everyone has all their audits in on time, and so that your recommendations can go to State Board for January.
Depends on the LGC and people get their audits in time.
Is December a realistic time to vote if we've got a invite? You said there's only 4 or 5 schools that could be almost automatic 10. So are you talking 10 or so that might have
Oh, that's 4 or 5, that's good. Right, and on top of the other things that you already have going on, and that's another follow-up that I would like to do with you all as far as where do you want the line drawn of who you want to see. And, you know, maybe I can create something where they submit a 1-page response to whatever the concern is, and you can have that. So we just, as far as working that out, I don't know what it's gonna
Yeah, we're maybe a
look
little
like.
too early to discuss
Yeah,
that exact
time-wise.
timeline until we see the data in the chart
Okay.
next month. And then we'll know, I mean, if we have to vote in January, because we can't get it all done in November and December. then-
Okay. All right, you have any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
All right, Jay.
All right, so the next item is a brief update on the NC Access Program and approval of the updated timeline, application, and rubric for the next subgrant cycle. So for members new to the board, the NC Access Program is our state's implementation of a $26.6 million federal CSP grant. We awarded 9 schools with subgrants in the first cycle in 2019, so those schools are in the process of implementing their program and implementing their subgrant. I will note that we have not processed any reimbursements as of yet because of the status of the state budget, but we are working with our subgrantees and planning to start requesting reimbursement documentation so we can start that process at least on our end for allowability before we can officially process reimbursements for those schools. And then 18 leaders from those 9 schools are in our Access Fellowship, which started in July. It's off to a really great start. We've had one in-person session and 1 virtual session. We have our next in-person session coming up at the end of September at NCAT. So very excited about that program and the start that we've gotten there. Some general updates about the upcoming application process. This year, we are not categorizing the amount of awards we will give in any specific subcategory. So last year we allocated certain numbers per planning and implementation categories and implementation only. We've got some flexibility from the U.S. Department of Education to not use those specific categorizations and give out subgrants based on the strengths of the applications that are submitted and sort of the needs that we see in the state and among the charter school landscape generally. So we have some additional flexibility there. We've also gained some flexibility in the amount of money that we can award to particular subgrants. So for this coming year, planning and implementation only subgrantees or prospective applicants can apply for up to $800,000 in subgrant funding, and expansion and replication applicants can apply for up to $1.25 million in funding. There is no guarantee that even if that is requested and they are approved, that they will get that amount of money, but they have the ability to request that, and we have some flexibility based on the strength of the application to award what we see fit for the proposed application. And then we also, and I'll get into some of the specifics, we also tried to better align the application and the rubric this year to create more consistency among some of the external evaluations and the scoring of the application and the rubric. So I'm going to start with the timeline based on feedback that we got from prospective applicants last year and debriefs that we did as a team. We want to extend the window for applicants to submit applications. So our goal this year is to get recommendation from the state board on November 7th and post the request for application on November 15th. And then we will provide technical assistance and support to schools throughout the fall and into the spring, with letters of intent being due on January 15th and the full subgrant application due on March 1st. So giving applicants a larger window to submit, and then recommendations coming to this board at the same time in May of 2020, and then final approval by the state board in June of 2020 to start implementing on July 1. Any questions about the timeline before I move into the application? Great. So the major updates to the application were we increased the page limit from 15 to 20 pages for a sub-grant application to give applicants a greater degree of latitude to answer some of the specific questions and provide evidence within the application. We split the application narrative into 3 sections: an enrollment section, an education plan, and an operations plan. And we also assigned point values to each of the questions within each subsection, so that aligns now with the rubric that external evaluators and our team can go through to specifically score each question of the application narrative. Most questions are the same as the last cycle. We are going to ask for some more specifics around the implementation of a weighted lottery and the rationale behind some of the enrollment projections to be very clear about what these schools are projecting and the rationale for how they can meet those enrollments and how they're using the weighted lottery as a tool towards that. We did add a question around the diversity and capacity of the staff and those who are going to be implementing these programs and some of the proposed services under the sub-grant program. And we also added restrictions around how fast subgrantees can spend their money. So in order to ensure a thorough and consistent monitoring across their 5 years in the subgrant, they are not allowed to spend more than 50% of their subgrant funding in the first year, no more than 75% of the total funding through years 1 and 2, and the subgrant cannot be expended in less than 3 years, to avoid an instance where all the money is expended in year 1 and they're still in the program for 5 years of monitoring. We wanted to have some consistency over those years, so restricting how much money can be spent on the front end. And then, as I mentioned, the rubric is now broken down into subsections and questions to align with the application, and both the red line and clean versions of all of those documents are available in eBoard. So we are requesting approval of the timeline, application, and rubric to then send to the state board next month.
Do we have any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the documents as given.
We have a second on that. All right, so the motion is to recommend to the state board that they approve the application timeline and the rubric?
Application rubric.
Yeah. The timeline, comma, application, comma, and rubric, yes. C. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jay, before you get down, would you mind introducing your team? You guys are doing a great job, and they need to get a couple of girls.
Yes, for those of you that have not met all the members of the NC Access team, I also have Dr. Barbara O'Neill, who is our program coordinator, and Mariama Jane, who is our finance administrator. Jamelia Shahid El is downstairs working right now. She's our technical assistance specialist. So could not be where we are right now without the support of this team, particularly around the Access Fellowship and the work that it took to get that off the ground over the course of the summer. So very grateful for the work that our
All right, 2018 Performance Framework Report.
Everybody's favorite?
Your presentation can be as long as you want because ethics training's after that, so.
Now, that's really bad.
It's important, but
Performance framework,
it's
ethics
hard to
training.
make it interesting. Sorry, Mr.
think
Snyder,
wait,
you
you'll
are
be glad
going
you're
to
sitting down.
impress me. I'm expecting a interpretive dance.
You're below performance framework.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, and Charter Schools Advisory Board is my honor to present to you for the first time on the performance framework results of the 17-18 school year. Since joining the office in February, we've had a lot of discussions, put a lot of thought to making this process as administratively not burdensome, light on schools, while holding schools to a level of accountability that we're proud of. We believe this should be a bragging right for charter schools because we really do look at a lot of different measures, and included in your packet is a list of all of the items that we look at operationally in the Office of Charter Schools Reviews as well as external departments as well. So without further ado, review, I do want to thank my team, Dr. Daniel Allen and Sarah Porter, who helped me review well over 3,000 documents each year for this. Also Shonda Cooper, her excellent job that she does with the renewals. And of course, our director, Mr. Machado, is empowering leadership. So, looking at the goals and identifying trends, this is similar to what you saw last year as far as this part goes. Let's go to the next slide, announce the trends, overall percentages. State board goals and measures, we have objective 2.4, increased number of charter schools meeting academic, operational and financial goals, that kind of covers everything. 2.41A has to do with the college career readiness. 2.4.1B has to do with grade level proficiency. And objective 2.42, meeting or exceeding annual academic growth. 2.4.3, meeting or exceeding all financial and operational goals as measured by the performance framework. Slide, please. The highlight of this report is going to be the fact that we had 94.2 schools of our measure meeting or exceeding the goals, which is above the target set at 90%. And actually, each of these other areas we had growth, we surpassed the target and had progress in the 16 and 17 year, except for the academic growth. So we look at all these different categories. The operational monitoring is the one that the Office of Charter Schools primarily reviews, and other departments look at financial and academic. Of course, Shonda Cooper does renewal monitoring. See here, there's a difference in the from 17 and 18 school years. We actually had fewer schools exceeding goals, and we believe that it's because of greater scrutiny our office put on actually reviewing all the documents submitted rather than just deeming everything submitted as compliant. Wanted to actually give good feedback to schools so that they can make corrections, and in some cases those corrections were not made in time, and that's why we don't have quite as few exceeding, but we do have more meeting, and if you look at not meeting, there are actually only 10 schools out of 172 in the 17-18 school year that fell below that target, so that's pretty good. All right, and hit it again, I think we've got it, okay, and it says that we're above the 90% target, so that's good. Okay. And then we get into the operational, these are different ones here. Thanks to Shonda Cooper, who's awesome, all 11 renewal schools met their goals because it was communicated well enough to them where they were able to get fixed in time. And that's something we really put an emphasis on is better communication, so that all the things that are out in peripheral, all school leaders that we know are out there, resources and requirements, we can bring them to the forefront so they know what's expected, and we believe that that will help them get everything right. So financial compliance, we did really well. We only had one school that actually was non-compliant by FBS, and there were 2 unresolved issues. Next slide. Then we look at overall academic outcomes. First, we look at the grade level proficiency, comparable to LEA. Of course, we would like to see 100% on all of this, but that's something we're working towards. So we had 113 of 170 schools met the goal, and you'll notice in these that the schools operating 10 years or more tend to meet these goals better than schools who have been operating for less than 10 years. And then for college and career, there is one for college career readiness. 113 and 170. Then we'll go to the next one. Looking at the demographics, for the female subgroup, we had 113 out of 170 applicable schools that were comparable to the LEA. That is percentage-wise, that's 66%. So we want to do better. All right, next slide. And then we had 119, which is 70% for the male subgroup. And both of these were the same. I did look back for the 16-17 year. It's actually the same number of schools each of those years that were comparable in these subgroups. And then we'll get into the more demographic subgroup. We'll look at white, black, Hispanic, and American Indian. You'll notice that not all schools had significant populations of all of those. With the white subgroup, we had 158 schools that had significant, again, out of 172, with 2 of those having K through 2, so weren't during these. And then, all right, so with the white group, we had 63%. That was up 4 schools from 2017. And next slide, please. With the black subgroup, we had 66%. Percentage-wise, it was better. And that's out of 166 schools compared to 158. That was actually down by 6 schools in 2017. They were not all the same schools, though. I did go back and check the actual schools. There were 9 who had been under that variability in 16-17 that overcame that, so that's a good thing. And then we had a mixture of new schools and older schools that fell behind in that. We've got room for growth there for sure. Next slide, please. The Hispanic subgroup, I thought this was impressive. 159 out of 168, which is actually 84% of our schools with this significant demographic that our ability to LEA. That was up 11 schools from 2017. We definitely saw some progress there. Slide, please. And then for the American Indian subgroup, we only had 78 schools that had the significant American Indian subgroup population. That is 63%, and that is up by 1 school from 2017. And then, do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Sorry? That was not in the. What is that acronym?
Economically disadvantaged?
Oh, we did not look at that for the 17-18.
I think it'll come out in the annual report. It's where it'll show up. I don't think it's in the performance framework.
And obviously, this was 17-18, and we will assure you that we'll get 18-19 a lot sooner than to this one.
Well, it was an enormous amount, and I think now that y'all have done this initial check everything, it should be a lot easier.
Joseph's doing a great job. We're really happy to have him on the team, and he's doing a fantastic job.
We've had really good feedback from the school leaders with the Epicenter system. They really liked it, and they're using it for everything. And allow our office the opportunity to give regular and proactive feedback, and do it multiple times if necessary. Call if that doesn't do it, and we expect this to get better.
Question.
Yes.
Just so that we all understand, comparable to LEA, what metric are you using?
So that's the academic metrics. That's not something that's measured by our office. That comes from accountability.
Okay.
Do you know if they use the 5%
5%?
like we do for renewals?
Oh, it is 5%.
It's
I did
5%.
see that in the footnote.
5%,
Yes.
okay.
So within 5%.
Any other questions, comments?
Some of the goals, not some of, all the goals in the State Board of Ed's strategic plan were made by me in our office. And I think a little aggressive in some of the goals, but I thought we needed to be. So think we're definitely trending in the right direction.
So Joseph, what does the school get back as their feedback? So once upon a time, we got back this big chart with all this red and green and gold on it.
Right, once we have all of the reviews back from the other departments, we find a report. And the one from last year was a transition year, so we kind of sent a preliminary draft result report, and that's what you saw with all the red. We did have a window of correction where we got to look more closely at all those items, and some of them we were able to change from red to green. And this year, it'll just be the proactive, ongoing communication throughout the center and phone calls. Well, where if there's a problem, you're going to know. I know I've been phone calls with, we got results back on 817, which was the big item, looking at health services. There's the return to learn, the biggest thing with concussions. There are multiple pieces to that. If you miss one of those pieces, you miss the whole measure. So I've been on the phone with school directors telling them specifically what they missed on that for the 18-19 year. And that's kind of early, but definitely want to let people know what exactly so that they can get it fixed for the 19-20 year.
So with you guys, I mean, now there's 194 schools. Do you keep like this massive tracking system where, you know, like when A17 rolled out, once everybody has submitted documentation, whatever, that you did it that way?
I have a spreadsheet. Fortunately, there were 92 issues with the A17 item out of 184 schools, and I have a spreadsheet, and I condensed that information, simplified it, and that'll all be included when we send out the report. It'll be once we get the other results back.
Just for clarity on that, there's one summer report that everybody's gonna get, or is each school gonna get their summer report
Each
like we
school
used
will
to
get their report, and we don't really talk about doing one big document.
I just have one more comment. As someone that's hearing from the field, thank you for your phone calls. Thank you for the communication that you're doing. It's, I think the schools are really feeling like it's service-oriented, that you're just trying to help them with the communication. So thank you for your patience and for your phone calls.
Someone who's grown up literally in the charter school movement, I've seen things from different angles, and I know how many hats charter school leaders wear. And we take accountability seriously, but if we can help get information from their peripheral vision that's all over the place in their, field of view, and just tell them what the expectations are, I believe that we can get to zero. And that's the goal I set for 2021, to see zero operational science issues. Everyone should be able to meet all those goals, and we're going to try to help them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, great job.
Thank you.
Great job. So, next we have ethics training. You may be asking yourself, why do we have a separate ethics training? Because everybody knows, I hope, that you're required to do the Ethics Commission's training. You have to do that every 2 years, and, when you come in. And then that is something that's also interesting for this board. We are the only advisory board in state government that is subject to the Ethics Act, which I've pointed that out. I'm not making any comments, I'm just introducing Eric. That we are subject to the Ethics Act, so remember that, but then there's also some state board policies dealing with ethics that are a little bit different, and so that's why each year we ask counsel for the state board to explain that, to make sure that we don't run afoul of any of the ethics issues. So, Eric, floor is yours.
Great, well, thank you very much. I'll note that with the performance framework, the lights were dimmed for cinematic effect. We brought them up a little bit for those at home. As we're talking about sunlight on these issues, this is primarily going to be a recap for most of you who've done board work. For new board members, welcome. A lot of this will be very familiar with you. However, we will move, as I hope, at a very quick clip through some background information and just to level set and talk about some of your unique obligations as a Charter School Advisory Board member. So today, let's talk about, let's see if I can get this to fly. Well, today we're going to talk about open records, public meetings, and your unique obligations ethics-wise here affiliated with the state board and the department. And so let's first, as the PowerPoint comes back up on the screen, let's first talk about public records. So, as you all are well aware, public records means any document that you make or receive in connection with your work here that's for the public. So, this is where it doesn't matter sort of the medium of the document, whether it's an email, whether it's a digital voicemail, a photograph, a book, a pamphlet, materials you receive from correspondence you may receive in the process of this work. Really, it's anything that's made or received in connection with your transaction of public business. So while the form doesn't matter, neither does the content. Again, the issue is, does it relate to your work here on CSAB, on behalf of CSAB in the state? So I've got a number of pieces bullet pointed here. Again, correspondence, it might be draft policies, it might be letters from constituents who are directing concerns or thoughts to you because you are a member of the CSAB. You now have a DPI address, and I would treat that as, anything that comes into that is primarily going to be a piece of public record. Figuring out how to use this. Okay, here we go. I was aiming at the wrong direction. All right. Even though it comes into your DPI address, or perhaps maybe it's a text to you on your cell phone about some of your CSAB work, there are certain exceptions where a record that you receive related to this is not a quote-unquote public record. So, for example, if you're contacting me for legal advice for your work here on the board, or if I send you legal advice, that's going to be a protected communication. We talk about whether or not it's responsive to public record. There are other kinds of statutory exemptions, and these are outlined in the general statutes, for example, tax records, trade secrets, all kinds of security-related information, for example, passwords and the like. To the extent you get into personnel issues, anything beyond sort of basic personnel information, items that might be in a personnel file here at DPI, those are going to be not public. Here in our school world, you all are familiar, of course, with protections that we have in place for student records, records for exceptional children, criminal proceedings that involve juveniles. Because you're familiar with facilities, you know that emergency response plans for facilities are exempted from these public record laws, and other kinds of information here, in particular, related to student person identifiable information. All right, so who should be able to access public records? Well, self-fulfilling prophecy, it's in the name, it's for the public. So it doesn't matter who's requesting or why, but if it's a public matter, they're entitled to see it. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't certain restrictions about the reasonableness of those kinds of requests. So there can be restrictions with respect to folks coming into the building to inspect records as opposed to us producing them. Also, time to respond. Generally speaking, it's a reasonable time and manner for the agency to respond. Well, what's reasonable? Well, that's not defined, of course, because there's any number of factors that may impact how quickly an agency can respond. It could be the clarity of the request. It could be the amount of resources that the agency can actually devote to that particular project. It could be the scope of the request. So it really varies based on a number of factors. There's not anything prescribed in the statutes about what the response time might be. Now, for your purposes, as we think about this, if someone asks for a public record and something that's just been communicated verbally, well, there's not a public record of it. There's not a document or there might be a web recording, but that would be a medium. But if something is not recorded or been otherwise memorialized, it's not going to be subject to public records request. Sometimes we'll have public and non-public records that get commingled. That will impact sometimes the amount of time it takes to respond or whether or not something is responsive to a request. Frequently we'll get requests into the agency where someone wants us to create a record, essentially do this work to yield XYZ document. That kind of work is typically not required of an agency in response to a public records request. All right, so for your purposes, protocols. If someone, if a constituent reaches out to you and asks for documents of some kind, if you would please refer those requests to the DPI Communications Department. Or you can just send them to Dave and Dave can reroute. Dave or someone at OCS or legal can help reroute those requests to the appropriate place. A lot of times folks will send a series of requests to all board members. And rather than reply piecemeal, we'll reply once, having collected everybody's message that they've received with respect to that request. Sometimes there's a need to go into email archives. We can work with IT folks to do that, materials that are responsive to a request. For your purposes, the thing to remember is if you get a request, forward it along to legal. We can get it to communications or Dave can get it to communications so that we can coordinate our resources and sort of not double up with respect to your burdens while the agency's working on similar requests. All right, so if you're a member of the public and you're interested in how well this agency or any other agency is being responsive to public records requests, one can go to court. The remedies typically are getting an ordered release of documents. Some circumstances, attorney's fees are appropriate. So that's an important provision of our law, and there are some teeth to it. That's why our agency takes very seriously requests we get from the public. Let's turn to open meetings here. So what are your legal responsibilities here in open meetings? Of course, this right now is an open meeting. Any public body, of course you are a public body, can be subject to these meetings. So we have a number of different configurations here on the PowerPoint. Of course, you're not the only ones here at the DPI building who are subject to these rules. So, for example, our Professional Educator Preparation and Standards Commission is subject to open meeting laws, as is the Textbook Commission. Our advisory councils at our residential schools are also subject to these open meetings laws. So there are a number of entities that impact K-12 who are subject to these kinds of rules, just as you are. So which meetings, though? Well, let's talk about official meetings where a majority of members are gathered. So did y'all get together to do legislative, policy-making, quasi-judicial, administrative, or advisory work? So that's the case. If you're doing CSAB's work and you've met up and there's a majority of you, or a majority of a subcommittee of you, that's where we're going to run into triggering open public meetings laws. And it doesn't matter where it's held, right? So, for example, when you are out west this summer, even though you were in a conference facility, that, of course, was a public meeting. It doesn't just have to be here in this room. All right, so what should we be doing? Lucky for you, OCS has staff that takes care of these logistics for us with respect to getting agendas posted with time, date, and location. Of course, you've got regularly scheduled meetings throughout the year. Occasionally, we'll schedule special or emergency meetings as circumstances dictate. So that's not a piece for you to worry about. As you know, we have minutes of our meetings, and you will review those. Bruce was a close read today, and we added some corrections to them. So I encourage you always to read your minutes so that we can have a good record of what occurred at our meetings. There are occasions how, and typically we will broadcast via YouTube the audio of these meetings. I think if you ask anyone who's a YouTube listener, perhaps you've been that, you know that sometimes the audio is not great. Nevertheless, we work within the confines of the technology we have here, sometimes working within the limitations of the technology we have here to try to broadcast your important work to the public. But in any event, we will have those recordings, make them available, and have minutes to reflect what actions you take and discussions you have during the meetings. So that's for one of the good reasons. It's just a housekeeping piece. If You'll try to remember to speak into your mics to make sure that that audio gets captured and so folks can hear it.
Did you hear that, Sherry?
Moving on, we started the meeting today with reading of the ethics statement, and we will do this at the top of all of our meetings. And we've had an experience today with a little bit of closed session as well. This is something that occurs if you all gather together. That's going to trigger the open meetings laws. And then, as we've had today, a motion to go into closed to talk about attorney-client matters, so that you all can seek legal advice, or in some instances, talk about other kinds of matters, right? So, for example, we could talk about some matters that would otherwise be confidential. Sometimes there's contract-related issues for other boards, personnel matters, but typically we talk about, pending litigation, for example. So there can be any number of pieces that can be properly preserved with the right motion and the right topic for closed session. Okay, so let's say there's a problem with respect to our public bodies' compliance with the public meetings laws. Well, a concerned member of the public can seek an injunction to stop a particular kind of practice that a board or commission might be taking that doesn't comply with the law. So they can go to court and join you and get you to stop. Also important is that any decisions reached by that group can be invalidated. So if you did it in secret, it can get tossed out. So that's why, it's the public's work, it should be in proper public meetings space, and if it wasn't, then it can be invalidated. All right, for those who are particularly interested in these topics, you can find some great resources online. There's a couple that I've linked here in the PowerPoint that you can follow if you're particularly interested. And for those who are analog, there's also print items. All right, so let's move to this last provision here concerning ethics and conduct. So I've got a couple policies that you find on state boards that are generally applicable, not just to the Charter School Advisory Board, but other committees that are affiliated with DEI. So let's talk first about conflict of interest policy. So under the state board's conflict of interest policy, which is also applicable to it, members such as yourself and state board members are required to comply with applicable laws, regulations, and policies. And if you have a question about how those laws, regs, or policies may impact you in your capacity as a Charter School Advisory Board member, please come to legal. I'm happy to assist, as is Tiffany Lucas and Stephanie Lloyd and Melissa Strong, to help you understand what your next steps ought to be when a situation may present itself to you. Of course, you have a strong fiduciary obligation to the board and to the state board as well. Conflict of interest policy also outlines that, in your service here of the Charter School Advisory Board, that you not try to leverage that position for financial gain, direct or indirect, for you or your family during the service during your service here on the CSAB. To the extent you may be involved in activities that create a conflict of interest, encourage you to avoid those. All that includes activities that may create the appearance of a conflict of interest. And consistent with the ethics statement, you can disclose things that you think may present an appearance, just to manage your work. This is a nonpartisan board, just as the state board is. The board as a whole is not supposed to take positions with respect to political issues or perhaps legislative matters. That's a piece that's outlined in our policy. And then there's a reporting piece here. If you think that there's a potential for an appearance of conflict of interest, if you report that up to the chair, typically we recognize those items during meetings if there are existing issues that are on the agenda. If you have other concerns about some of your work, certainly the ethics office for the state has given you an assessment based on information you provided to them, which is also a useful North Star for you as you do this service. So if there's a violation of the conflict of interest policy, there can also be consequences, including removal, and those are determined by membership of this board. Now, beyond the conflict of interest policy, we also have a standards of conduct policy. You can also find this on eBoard. You can follow the link that's here in the PowerPoint. Again, this applies broadly to the state board, employees of DPI, Charter School Advisory Board, and other kinds of commissions, councils, and committees here at the agency. Our professional educators here in the state, the teachers in our classroom, in our administrative code, have a very high code of conduct. They don't get to take their teacher hat off after the bell, and whether it's summertime or when school's in session, there's a very high standard for them to follow. And this is a piece that we remind our educators of when they are called in for purported bad conduct. So when they come in for an interview with our Educator Ethics Advisory Committee, we will frequently remind them of their obligations, because North Carolina just has a very high set of standards for its teachers. And since you're in the work of supporting teachers in schools, the standards of conduct policy that the state board has adopted in many ways mirrors that policy, that rule for teachers. So again, this is an expectation for high levels of personal integrity, truthfulness, honesty, fortitude, and the like. Again, avoiding actions that would appear to be not in the best interest, educational interest of kids. A lot of this policy focuses around kinds of things that people may offer to you in your capacity as a CSAB member. And so again, this idea of not trying to solicit or accept, either directly or indirectly, meals, travel, lodging, other items of value from any of those who you might do work with here for CSAB. If you expect that they might, if there's an expectation of quid pro quo, or would create appearance of trouble. We see that folks who really fall in this are groups that are subject to control or regulation by the department, the board, CSAB. Now, to be clear, the state board's policy that's broadly applicable does not prohibit folks from getting meals, travel, lodging, or gifts that are provided because of a family relationship. They don't stop you from accepting certain awards or honors. They don't stop employees of DPI from having approved secondary employment or dual employment. There's also some exceptions to this, in particular for conferences that are related to educational purposes. So for example, if there's a meal sponsored in connection with an education conference and you've been asked to attend as a member of the CSAB, it's appropriate for you to exercise this exception and accept the lunch. Again, this can be, there's not necessarily a hard and fast rules here, but primary consideration is given to the purpose of the meeting or seminar, the extent to which the meeting or seminar will help you in performing your duties here as a CSAB member. But if someone's like trying to score a contract with DPI or really lobbying hard for a piece of, looking for some consideration from the CSAB with respect to an item that's pending or is expected to be pending, like they can't just like take you out to Ruth's Chris for dinner to help move, move the needle on their particular item. Now, I will say these kinds of questions are going to come up a lot for you. They certainly come up a lot for our members of the department. Just ask the question and get blessing from legal. We're happy to answer those questions for you and help walk through those particular circumstances, because again, there can be 100 different kinds of circumstances, but we're here to help you stay in the right lane and avoid any trouble. So as we wrap up here, happy to take any questions. I serve as our ethics liaison for the state board and have done some work assisting this, with the CSAB as well. You can get advisory opinions from the North Carolina Ethics Commission. If you're into the extra reading, of course, you can pull the State Government Ethics Act and review that yourself, as well as other statutes that may be applicable to a situation. Of course, we've got criminal statutes that deal with all kinds of wrongdoing and the like. But that's the end of my presentation, unless folks have questions.
I have no questions.
I appreciate your attention late in the day.
I actually do. Succinct and to the point as you can get. So thank
Bruce
you
has
for
a
that.
question.
I actually do have a question, if I can be indulged.
In the role of being on CSAB, there occasionally comes to bear where people who are on other boards that I sit on, or would be employees of the school that I'm on the board of, come before and have had a hand in helping write other applications or even sit on the board of those other schools. Is that a
What an interesting fact-specific question that I'd be happy to talk with you about after the meeting.
Okay.
I mean, I think you're going to see in the chairs that you sit in, because the charter world is kind of a niche world where there are lots of repeat players, and you know folks who are in the industry and who work in K-12 and legislative affairs writ large. You're going to run into a lot of folks who you see often that you've had relationships with, and that's great. That brings so much value and expertise to this board. It really can be a fact-specific question, depends on how items are poised to come before CSAB for review. It can depend on the level of relationship you have with other contacts that you've met along the way. There are just a number of factors too, and again, we're happy to help talk you through that. And I would always suggest that, consistent with the policies, just disclosing those items to the chair, either before or after you talk with legal, is just a way to put sunlight on those issues. Because you all are in the unique position of having lots of constituents across the state who relay lots of important, valuable information and expertise to you. And I guess the question is, at what point does someone's particular ask or request, coupled with your level of relationship, and 3, the way an item is presented, that sort of matrix potentially create an issue, and legal's happy to walk with you on that. And sometimes they're very difficult questions.
Is there something we should be concerned about with these requests from Lakeside Charter that you guys are keeping us apprised of?
Is this the ones where we just keep getting on every email that this person's asking for a FOIA request through?
We just get
They're
copied
asking
on
the
it.
school and we're getting copied on it. Yeah, is there anything we need to do with those?
Yeah, should we be concerned about it, Dave, for any reason?
No, when you get an email from a stakeholder at one of our schools, like you're copied on it, if it's asking for something in particular, we'll handle it. If they're asking the school for public record requests and they CC everybody, our office, this board, state board, the school is responsible. And I always contact the school and say, you guys taking care of this, so, but you don't, unless,
But
is
I'm
that correct?
just
They don't,
asking-
you don't, I think that's more, that's an FYI, plus I think they feel like if your name's on it, it carries a little more
Right,
urgency.
but I mean, I know they're saying to that school, hey, look, we copied
Yeah.
all these, but I'm just saying, in this particular case, is there something we should be keeping a pulse on?
If there is an issue, I will certainly let you know if there was.
I'll just say, certainly you all are going to get CC'd with a lot of messages, and in particular, as these DPI addresses are out there, I expect you to get more and more messages. Again, if you have and I wouldn't suggest to anyone on this board one way or another how to read their email, but if you've got a particular concern about, hey, where are we at with this particular request? Does this belong to us? Just feel free to pick up the phone and give Dave a call or legal a call, and we're happy to give you that update, or just shoot us a note and we'll advise whether our position is we think something is directed more at one of the charter schools versus the agency or you as a CSAB member. Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. All right. We have a couple, I want to talk for a few minutes about some committee work that we're going to do this year. So right now, the two kind of projects and things that we wanted to task the CSAB with, providing some advice and engaging in, are reviewing our charter agreement, which I think we just felt like it was time to just take a look at and see if if the board had any feedback on. And then also to just do a review of the Ready to Open framework. And I was not here for the RTO discussion most recently, but again, kind of the same thing. There's nothing, I don't think we think there's anything wrong, but it's, just kind of a process to go through every, 3 to 5 years and say, okay, from our perspective, as board members, is there any feedback that we have for OCS in terms of this process? So we divided, if you look on eBoard, we divided up based on committee. So the performance committee taking the Ready to Open, and the policy committee taking the charter agreement.
Yeah. What I would ask for on the charter agreement is, if you have suggestions on things that you think need modified, to prep those, maybe email them to me, let me know. And then also, I would, love for the association to make comments. I know Rhonda's back there, on what they think might need changed. I know there's other groups out there as well, Linda Lynn, that I'm sure Matthew Tilley probably has some ideas about that. So, to get as much information as we can as we try to do that, and just make sure that it's a cleaner document, something that people are able to understand, and to add things in if they need it added in, and then if some stuff needs taken out, take it out. A lot of things have changed since 1997 when that was drafted. So, and there's been some piecemeal changes, but if we need to make more, we will.
So the one that says, the document says master charter agreement, that's the one that currently exists?
Mm-hmm.
Then as far as the Ready to Open, Dr. Williams has done a phenomenal job of getting us information, as we even saw today, keeping up with that. She sent me the rubrics and things like that, and I'll be sending that information to you guys just to look over, have any comments on it.
Is that all right here?
No, I'm gonna be sending it to you.
In addition to these 3 pieces.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Is that on?
Here's the framework, the evidence checklist, and the minimum guidelines.
Yeah, I also got the schedule of what they do for the Ready to Open meetings, what they cover in that, so I'll send that to you too.
So when are we
And we'll,
tasked with doing this? Just this year?
It'll be over the year.
yeah,
If we could get the charter agreement done by the time we sign the next ones on
when is that?
June 30th of next year, we'll be in good shape.
And the Ready to Open process begins
This month.
this month, so we're talking about getting feedback and everything for next year. We're not trying to change it this month, what's happening this year.
Open to 21.
Too.
All right, so, that kind of guidelines on how we'll go about that will be forthcoming. But that's just, one of the things we try to do is work on some longer term type work in addition to doing the regular cycle of application for renewals and whatnot.
And this might be a good year since we don't have as
many
many
apps.
applications.
Okay, great. So, Dave, do you want to give us some updates on state board stuff?
Sure. First, Patricia's got to come up and talk to you about the most important thing, and that's getting reimbursed for your travel and the new things that we have to do. And I believe there's some information.
In your phone, in your binders?
Microphone? There's people in China that might want to hear what you're saying.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see you guys. Hey, Steven.
Hey,
see you in a long time. Okay, so in your binders, you're going to see a W-9 forms. The previous W-9 forms that were submitted have been shredded. So they're on a new system now with travel. It's supposed to be a lot quicker though, guys, for processing for you. So notice this form is quite different from the one that you filled out before. If you'll just indicate your last 4 digits of the social And I know they're tiny. And then if you assign where it says claim it, and then just keep that in your binder, so when you send back your original receipts and everything, I'm going to attach this copy with your signature along with your receipts for lodging for those of you that have spent the night with us. Okay?
They requiring?
Continue.
I'm sorry, were they requiring direct deposit also?
I just called David about that. Initially, they were requiring everyone that got reimbursed from the state to get direct deposit. I just clarified and confirmed that unless you guys want to, you don't have to. They will still issue paper checks for you unless you just want to get the direct deposit. If you want the direct deposit, just let me know. And send me an email. I'll send you the form that you're going to need to complete for that, and then you'll send me a copy of your voided check along with the form that I will send to you. Okay? Does anybody have any questions for me? And this form right here, I updated a little bit. Still typical of the same form that you had before. I took the parking off because we are giving you guys your parking pass. So hopefully you have that in your binder too, and if not, please let me know.
Where's parking?
It should be in your binder.
You park on
Your
the
free-
corner of Jones and Wilmington, that public parking lot, and you have a voucher to pay for that. Thank you.
Let me know if you didn't get a
I
parcel.
got it. I just didn't know where the lot was.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's great.
I-
Thank you for doing
The
that.
other lot is on the, straight over there. Yeah.
So Jones and,
Wilmington?
Yes, where we
You
parked.
come out the front door, turn right,
okay.
2 blocks up.
If we know we're not gonna ever use that, do you want it back so maybe somebody else can use it?
The W-9?
No,
Or the parking?
Yes.
Sure.
You mean you can't
You
get
don't
on
want
the
to
train with
park
that
the
shit?
train there?
Great idea.
Now, Trish, what do we need to bring our double IDs again for this?
Unfortunately, I apologize. This is like a whole new system that they have, and even our staff has had to go through some different changes to try to get everything done, but we're trying to assure that everybody gets reimbursed like in a really quick, timely manner. I do know for a fact, once they get everybody loaded in the system, the process is a lot faster than I've seen it. So,
So what if you
That's
have
what-
all this stuff now, today?
with the exception of the W-9, I'll take what you have and you can just send me.
There's a W-9 in here already that I've signed
Oh, really?
and filled it out.
So do you need the passport and all that?
No, they just need 2 forms of ID, which is your driver's license and or social security card, of both which I have.
Okay.
You can, after the meeting, we go up to her office and she'll process it.
Isn't passport one of the things you can use?
Yes.
You can, but if you want to use one of the other documents, that would be sufficient.
I just want
Where's
to
the
do that.
list of documents?
I think it's on the front page of it.
Which one?
That's for the I-9, this is the W-9.
Yeah, this is a W-9.
That's what they said that you guys need, is the W-9. I just clarified with him before meeting with you. I said I wanted to verify for certain if they need the sub W-9 or do they need a regular W-9. I was told a regular W-9. So,
And that's what we have.
right.
So you do or do not need ID?
For,
You should not need it with a W-9.
I don't think for the W-9, but I
Not for
think
the
for the
W-9.
sub W-9 we
For
would.
an I-9 you will.
That's only for the I-9.
Yeah.
Why would we need to do that?
Why do we do a
You're a
W-9?
citizen.
But I'm saying.
We're good.
Why are we doing
I
this?
just want to make sure that you guys are not inconvenienced any more than you have to be. That's important to me.
You did good.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. It's my first time meeting you, I believe. Does anybody have any questions? And if so, please email me, or you can give me a call. I'll be more than happy to assist you in whatever way I can.
She was so nice to me when she came up because in 6 years I've submitted one reimbursement request. See?
Thank you, Stephen.
She's glowing.
She's been very nice to me, and I've moved twice. My
She's
address
glowing
is
because
everything.
this past weekend was her, what, 11th year? 11th anniversary. That's why Patricia's still glowing.
Well, I don't get reimbursed very far for the block that I walk.
All right, quick updates on State Board of Ed. State Board of Ed did approve your recommendation for Bishop Brooks' request to relinquish her charter. Approved the mission statement, your recommendation for mission statements for Central Park. Exploris approved Essie Mae's request to terminate with their EMO. And they recognized Envision Science Academy as a North Carolina STEM school. This is only the second time a charter school has been recognized. This is really nice. And if you happen to look at see our newsletter or Twitter, you'll see we had some pictures of it. Some OCS updates. Every school that got a NC Access grant, the NC Access team went to their open houses, which is really good. Dr. Williams is visiting all the new schools that are opening up this year. We've made several visits to schools that asked us to come speak to their staffs. Thank goodness Healthy Start didn't ask me to come, or I would have had to dance with Alex. And I do want to say that I went and visited Hobgood for the very first day of school, and they had a great kickoff assembly. And you could just tell that school is so proud to be able to open up as a charter school, and it is in the middle of nowhere, but the community is really behind that school. And I'm just really proud to have been there. Like Alex says all the time, that's an example of a school that listened to what you had to say and came back 3 times to finally get approved, and I think they're going to do great. So, thank you very much.
All right, Stephen?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all.
See you next month.
Are you 1 day or 2 days next month?
I got them here. She left, and I got the avoided check if she needed
How
it.
many charter schools are open? What is the exact number of
You
charter
said
schools?
193 or something?
I think it's 196.
Okay.
I think it's 194.
You think it's 194? Okay.
You finally, it's good to
Ashley?
meet you.
What is the
Appreciate you
number
helping
of
me out,
charter
so-
schools that are open in the state?
I just had that. I want to say 197. No, 196.
196.
The total number of charter?
Is that including the community one that is gonna open tomorrow? Okay, 196. Okay, there was a press release that went out from DPI that said that there was 198.
So is this thing or
Who sent it out?
It was sent out August the 7th. No,
They probably maybe didn't have some of the delayed schools, or they
that's what they're off to, and I'm thinking it's the 2 delayed schools.
or the 2 that closed last year.
All right. Thank you.
We were super behind.